Hi guys, my name is Chelsea and welcome back to my channel. For today's video, we have my October wrap-up. So I know this is coming up a little bit late, and I'm very sorry about that, but I was doing stuff at the end of October. Leon's parents finally got to go back home and we had to take them to LA so they could catch their flight. And then we had to come back. I've been trying to get back into a good schedule with this kind of stuff, especially since Leon and I are the only ones with Presley now. We don't have that extra help that we had with Leon's parents, which I know I was super privileged to have in the first place. Obviously, COVID made it so they weren't able to go back home, but that helped me out a lot with this channel. So things might be a little bit later than I would hope for. I might go back to only really doing 2 videos a week instead of 3. We shall see, but I do have quite a few books to talk to you guys about today. Okay, so I have 21 books to talk to you guys about today. I only read a total of 20 books in the month of October because one of the books I read like half in October, half in November, but I did end up finishing it before I filmed this video. I finished it a few days ago actually. And so we're going to talk about it in this video because it's part of a series. But otherwise, I read 20 books in the month of October. And with those books, I read a total of 5,280 pages. Now we're going to go back to 20 books for these stats that I have here. I read 3 ebooks, 6 ARCs, and 11 physical books. 1 was middle grade, 2 were new adult, 4 were young adult, and 13 were adult titles. And then I think some of these are half stars, but for my stats, I have 4 3 stars, 8 4 stars, and 8 5 stars. So we did pretty darn well. The first books that I'm going to talk about, I actually did do an ARC vlog at the beginning of October, so I will leave that link down below. I will get into more thoughts on these books in that vlog, but the first one that we read in the month of October was Mary by Bree Grant. This is a young adult graphic novel about like the 5 times great-granddaughter of Mary Shelley. In this book, our main character of Mary not only comes from a line of prestigious authors and is trying to figure out what kind of thing she wants to write. She's having a lot of pressure put on her because of that. She also finds out that she can sort of heal monsters and that apparently Mary Shelley knew how to do that as well. I gave this book 3 stars. I felt like it was very good in concept, but I felt like too much stuff was being thrown at us at once and I got a little bit like bogged down with that. I just feel like it could have been drawn out a little bit more and described more easily so that I actually knew what was going on and we had more time to enjoy the different pieces of it. Then I read We Were Restless Things by Cole Nagamatsu. This is another one that I gave 3 stars. I read it as an ARC and the first half of this book is very, very slow and I wasn't too sure where we were going with it. I really thought the whole premise of this was the fact that there was a teen boy who drowned in the middle of a forest in this town. However, there's no body of water in the middle of this forest, but one of our main characters of Nomi somehow knows about this mysterious lake that is sometimes there and sometimes not. So in the aftermath of this teenager passing away, she is trying to figure out exactly what's going on with that. His ghost is supposed to be talking to her somehow, and so I thought it was definitely going to be more mystery, paranormal sort of thing. It felt a little bit more slice of life than that, and dealt with her and some of the other characters, like the aftermath of their day-to-day life after this death happened. The second half I do think got better. One of my favorite characters in here was Gaetan, who didn't really have a good part at the first half of the book. I didn't think I was gonna like him as much, but I did enjoy him afterwards. And so it's a middle of the road book. I'm very conflicted on it because of the fact that it was so slow at the beginning, but it also does have these like journal pages, like dream journal pages from Nomi that look super interesting in the actual book, but in the ARC they weren't there. So I think I might have to reread this eventually and see if my thoughts change. Then I read The Unexplainable Disappearance of Mars Patel by Sheila Chari. This is another one I gave 3 stars. This is a middle grade sort of sci-fi book that is based on a podcast. After a couple friends of Mars go missing, he takes it upon himself and his group of friends to sort of figure out what exactly is going on and what happened to them. It was interesting, however, I felt the characters were very one note. One of the characters was smart, and that was basically all he was. One of the characters was athletic, and that was all they were. One of the characters could potentially read minds, and that was all she could do. And it was literally, that was it per character. I really just wanted more from it. This book also ended on a cliffhanger that was basically in the climax of the scene. So while I'm intrigued about it, I don't know if I'm going to continue. I wish it would have just had given us more. And then I also read The Holo Places by T. Kingfisher. This is another one I gave 3 stars. The whole vlog I gave 3 stars. But again, look at the vlog if you want more in-depth feeling. This one was supposed to be a horror, and while it did have horror elements, body horror elements, I was just a little bit confused as to how everything fit together. This one follows our main character of Kara, who after a divorce moves in with her uncle, like at his shop, like an antique shop, and is gonna be there to help him out. While there, she finds a hole in the wall and realizes there's this like extra space that should not be there physically in the wall. And it goes into this weird other world that has like portals to potential other realities. I was really expecting more of that. That part I felt like got brushed over more for a more like what exactly is happening sort of stuff, and the ending just again threw too much at me. I really did enjoy the characters of Kara and her friend Simon. I loved the banter between them, so I do want to definitely check out more of T. Kingfisher's work. I just don't think this book had enough horror and alternate reality stuff that I was really hoping for based on the summary. Then I read volume 3, 4, 5, and 6 of Paper Girls. I read volume 4, 5, and 6 as a buddy read with Annie Likes to Read and Watch TV. I will leave her channel linked down below. And I loved these. I gave them all 5 stars. I rated the first 2 of them 5 stars a couple months ago when I read those. I absolutely love this series. This is a comic book series by Brian K. Vaughan, who is the same author of Saga, and Cliff Chiang, who is the artist in here. This series, okay, it's gonna be sort of hard to explain. I'm not gonna give any spoilers away, but we follow a group of paper girls from 1988 who get sucked into a weird time travel war between like old people and young people. It's crazy. Absolutely crazy. We didn't really start to really get answers until I want to say late book 4, early book 5, and it pulls together so beautifully. It does take a little while to get there, and so like I knew going in that we were going to have questions. It's a time travel, weird time travel type of story, and this is one of those time travel stories where things overlap and you might be in this time period, but the future stuff happened first. It pulled together so nicely. I believe this one has also been optioned for a TV show or something, and I'm very excited for it because I want to see how they're going to pull it all together, because again, the way it worked together was beautiful. The ending, a little bit open-ended, but I still loved it. And by the time I got to the end of the 6th volume, I really wanted to reread these, and so I will reread them eventually because I want to sort of see those things that like I got to book 5 and 6 and I was like, oh, I think I remember that happening because of how weird and cyclical everything was. It was so well done. The next one we read was Horrid by Katrina Leno. This was the Owl Crate book for September, which was perfect for going into October because it's a nice spooky read. This one I gave 5 stars. I absolutely loved the writing and the atmosphere. This one follows our main character of Jane, who, because her father has passed away, is moving from like California to Maine, I believe it is, with her mother back into her mother's like childhood home, and there are mysteries going on. There is stuff that we're not entirely too sure if it's paranormal or not. Jane is also having to deal with the grief of losing her father, and so there is a lot of talk about that grief in here. I'm hit or miss with the is it paranormal, is it not paranormal storylines, but I really, really loved the way it was done in here. I do feel like there was a couple reveals that I guessed early enough, but because of the way they were written, it was still like, oh my gosh, that's actually what it is. So even though I guessed what was happening, the way it was written and the emotions and the vibes and everything it gave me, I was still just like super, super happy with. So this one, phenomenal. Like, I think I devoured this within 2 sittings. Like, it was a very, very quick read and I loved it. The next one I read was An Arc of Black Sun by Rebecca Rowanhorse. This one came out in October and I actually ended up reading it a little bit past the date it came out, mostly because I fell into a reading slump. I don't know exactly why, but I ended up giving this book a 4 stars because there were some things that were really, really well done, and then there were other things that I feel like maybe it was just because I was in a reading slump, but I was not able to give it a full 5 stars at this time. This is a like high epic fantasy that follows Shiala, Serapio, and Naranpa. I absolutely loved Shiala and Serapio's point of view. They are a little bit more of like the morally gray characters, and they are sort of on a journey from a different land coming into the main area where Naranpa is. She is the, it's been so long since I've read this. She is some sort of priestess, sun priestess maybe, of this land, and so her point of view deals more with the politics of this area. That's probably why I didn't like her point of view as much. She was still a great character. I loved her voice, but the actual pieces of the story that she was having to deal with were a little bit more boring than Shiala and Serapio's, because they're like traveling in a ship trying to get to this area for a solar eclipse, I believe it is, and Shiala has to deal with the fact that she is a woman captain when everybody else is a man. Serapio is blind. That happens at the very beginning of the story, and so it's just, they feel a little bit more unique to me, and I really, really enjoyed them. The ending had a little bit of a cliffhanger, but in such a way that I'm just like, I need the next book. I need to know what happens. There are definitely hard topics and trigger warnings in this book. I don't remember all of them, but I know there's probably like parental abuse, mutilation. I think they talked about rape or potential rape. There's obviously murder and killing and stuff like that as well, but I really, really enjoyed it. Then I read the first 2 volumes of Locke Key. This is by Joe Hill and Gabriel Rodriguez. So the first one is Welcome to Lovecraft, and the second one is Head Games. I picked these up a couple months ago because I watched the Locke Key show on Netflix. There are some differences, obviously, from here to the show. The show is still a really good adaptation, I feel like, even though I know I watched that first. But I enjoyed both of them. I gave both of these volumes 4 stars. I do feel like these ones are darker than the TV show, but I also feel like these ones are also more problematic. There are definitely elements in here that I was like, really? Are we actually going there? And I don't know if these are supposed to be period pieces at all, only because there were certain things that did happen in here that I feel like would have happened closer to like maybe the 90s. And I believe these ones were written, and this is copyrighted 2019. So, but I feel like that's probably the bind up. I don't know. These are written, you know, within the last few years, most likely. And some of the stuff, like I said, that happened that was more problematic feels more like it could have happened more commonly in the 80s or 90s. Some of the stuff that I think are problematic, I don't remember all of it because I actually didn't take very good notes on these. I don't know why, but Kinsey in the first one, who is the teenage daughter, it wears dreads for a little while, which I absolutely dislike it when people, especially because Kinsey's white, are sort of culturally appropriating black hairstyles. That was something that definitely bugged me, and it does go away, and they didn't do that in the TV show, which I'm super happy for. And then in the second one especially, we have a side character who I believe is autistic in the show, and I think that's probably where they're going for it in here as well. But one of the bad characters uses the R word a lot. There were a lot of slurs in here. There was, I believe, the potential for rape or a previous rape. Again, I don't know for sure. There was definitely blood and gore and murder. I do want to reread these because I do want to actually continue on with the series. I gave them both 4 stars. But I do want to do a little bit better about actually writing down the trigger warnings and problematic elements from here, because I completely forgot to do that, and that is 100% my bad. But the ones that really stick out for me right now are the dreads on a white girl, the use of the R word with somebody who is very potentially autistic, and the rape. So, yes. The next book I read was An Arc of Ring Shout by P. Jelly Clark. I gave this a 4 out of 5 stars. This is a novella, so it was a very quick read to actually read, but it definitely deals with some hard topics. This one follows our main character of Maris, who is in the South dealing with the KKK in the 1920s. So this is definitely like a historical fantasy book. I really enjoyed our main character of Maris. I loved the social commentary that it obviously had on the racism in that time period, but also the fact that it is a fantasy based, so some of the KKK end up turning into more of like actual monsters, and it's 100% because they already have hate in their heart that is like blown out of proportion, and that's the reason why they sort of change into these monsters. And so I just really enjoyed that part. The one thing I will say, and this is part of the reason I gave it a 4 stars, it's because one of our side characters of Nana Jean has a Gullah accent. Accent? I don't even know if it's an accent. She was raised Gullah, and so a lot of her parts were very hard for me to read, and that is 100% a me problem. I really do think this would be a great audiobook because Maris also has a very unique inflection and way of speaking, but she was very easy to read from. Nana Jean's parts, I just really couldn't understand at all, and I had to sort of skim over those, but I feel like if you had the audiobook and you were able to listen to everything being told to you, that would give me a different experience. However, because I read this as an ARC, there was no audiobook out at that time, but I did still really enjoy the ride, and like I said, all the social commentary on the racism stuff that obviously happened in the 1920s, but is still very relevant to our time period now, even though I hate that it is so relevant to our time period now. Then I read the Adamson All Boys Academy series by C.M. Stunich. I'm going to be talking about all 3 books, even though the 3rd one is the one that I pushed into November a little bit. So I started with The Secret Girl. This is actually a book that I read for the first time last year, really enjoyed. I think back then I gave it 5 stars. This time I gave it 4.5. And we are dealing with our main character of Charlotte, or Chuck, who is going to be the first girl at an all-boys academy. However, she doesn't want to be singled out as the only girl, so she does go in dressed as a boy. And this is supposed to be a reverse harem bully romance. There is some bullying in the first book, not really in the other 2. And I didn't mind the bully romance aspect as much in this first book because of the fact that Charlotte, in a way of pushing people away, is very sort of rude and bullyish herself. And so she's just getting back what she was putting out into the world, and it's not overly bully. But then we also have the mystery thriller elements because, and this is part of the synopsis, this is not a spoiler, while she's there she actually finds out that there was another girl who had tried to join this all-boys academy, but she joined it as a girl and she ended up being killed. People thought it was a suicide, however her brother and Charlotte are not sure it actually was. So we have those elements. We have people trying to come after Charlotte. And the first book still held up pretty well. The one thing I do want to say is that Charlotte, because she's dressing as a boy, binds her chest with ace bandages, which is a big ol' no-no. I was hoping there would be more consequences for that, or for her and her father to eventually get a binder, because this is supposed to be like a present day series. You'd think they would know about this kind of stuff. And I really just wanted them to eventually switch to that, but they didn't, so keep that in mind. The second book I gave 3.5 stars. The more I think about it, the more it's probably just a plain old 3. It dealt a little bit too much with the romance aspect. Basically, it dealt too much with the sex aspect. At the end of the first book, we end on a big old cliffhanger, and we sort of have to ride that cliffhanger for a few chapters at the beginning of the second book. Those were okay, and then it delved completely into Charlotte and her sex life. There was way too much sex and her considering whether she wanted to be in relationships with some of these boys, whether she wanted to have sex all the time with these boys, and the fact that you're being hunted down potentially by a killer, it rubbed me the wrong way that, like, they never talked about this killer stuff unless something happened. it would always just be like put on the back burner and forgotten about. Also in this second one, Charlotte is very dismissive of her father, who appears to me, as a mother myself, as if he's trying to keep her own interests in mind. He's trying to send her away to get away from the killer, and she's like, no, I have boyfriends, I just want to stay with them and have sex. Like, it's just... She's like 17 in this book. They're all of age in the state they live in. I really think this book would have been better, the series would have been better, if it was a college story. We wouldn't have to have dealt with the father aspect, and they could be more like living on their own. It would have been much better. But I had issues in that second book. The mystery thriller stuff came back again at the end of the second book for another cliffhanger that led us into the third book, which is The Forever Crew. I gave this one 2 stars. I struggled to get through this book, which is the reason why it got pushed a little bit into November. They gave us the answers for the whodunit and everything like that, but it felt a little bit far-fetched, like extra far-fetched. It felt a little bit thrown together, and again, she was so focused on sex that I can't believe it. Like, literally they would be like, have just run from a murderer, and as soon as she's like hiding with somebody and they're like breathing hard because like they were running, she's like, oh my gosh, he's so sexy, let's do it right here in the middle of like the hallway or whatever. It was just way too much of that. This author is one of those authors that I've read books from and series from and absolutely loved, and I know I'm demisexual, and so sometimes I just don't understand why certain sexual aspects are being put into the story, but they felt really out of place for me because of the fact that I really wanted more of the murder mystery stuff, or I felt like she was definitely not considering her own safety at all because she wanted to have sex. Like, it just felt like that was the motivator more than anything else, and so, yeah. Then, the last books that I read for the month, I also did a vlog. I did Fortnite Frights at the end of October, so I have 5 books to talk to you guys here. Again, I'm going to run through them as quickly as possible because I did do a whole vlog for it. The first one for that we have is Venus in the Blind Spot by Junji Ito. This is a short story collection of horror manga. Junji Ito is like my favorite horror manga author and illustrator, and this one was really good. I gave it 4 stars. There were a couple stories that I didn't like as much, gave it like a 3, but they had some really good ones in here that I gave 5 stars. I absolutely loved it. Some of the stories are more nightmare-inducing than others, but it still has his very signature style for his manga, and I absolutely loved it. Then I read Every Heart a Doorway by Shauna McGuire. Again, absolutely love this, gave 5 stars. This is a novella, so it was very quick to get through. It's dark fantasy, which I knew it was dark fantasy going in because Seiji, the host of the Fortnite Frights, had a compendium of books that fit certain categories for the prompts that we had, but I didn't realize how dark it was actually going to be, but I really, really enjoyed this one. This one deals with teenagers, basically, that come back from portals to other worlds, almost like Alice in Wonderland once Alice comes back, and they go to this home to sort of try to acclimate back to our society. I really enjoyed our main character of Nancy and learning about this school through the book. It's very short, I'm not going to get into it any more than that, but I really love the characters. I guess I said I'm not going to get into it any more than that. We had a side character who was trans, and Nancy is asexual. I love the representation, and I'm going to definitely read more in this series. Then I read Cemetery Boys by Aiden Thomas. I gave this 5 out of 5 stars. I actually think this is my favorite book of the month. I absolutely loved it. This is a YA fantasy, magical realism, following our main character of Yadriel, who is Latinx and trans, and he is part of a community of brujaks, so brujos and brujas, who can see ghosts, and they're basically trying to help these people cross over and that kind of thing, and they are on, like, going into the eve of Dia de los Muertos, and there is a tragedy that befalls Yadriel's community, but he also ends up meeting Julian, who is a ghost, and they have to sort of figure out what happened. I absolutely love the characters and the characterization in this one. The emotions it gave me, I literally cried at some parts. Aiden Thomas, this is the first book. I think they are already an auto by author. Like, I absolutely, absolutely love this one. So yeah, if you want to hear more like specific thoughts, go look at the vlog, but love this one. Then I also read Night of the Mannequins by Stephen Graham Jones. This one I gave 4 out of 5 stars. It is very weird. I can't really get into this like at all without spoilers, but just know it is very, very weird. And when you think Night of the Mannequins, you probably think something that's more like the mannequins are the main focus of the story. That's not true. We definitely are focused more on one character's journey through the story, and the reason I gave it 4 stars, I can let you guys know this part, is our main character of Sawyer is telling this person from first person point of view. However, it is a very conversational tone, and so there are rambling sentences and run-ons and going off topic and coming back onto topic, so it is a little hard to keep up with at certain points, at least for me. Again, this is another one that I do think would be a really, really good audiobook, so keep that in mind. And then finally, I read The Hound of the Baskervilles by Sir Arthur Conan Doyle. This one I gave 4 stars. I think I give basically all of these ones 4 stars because it is a classic with that sort of classic old English style almost writing that I don't necessarily like as much, but I still really love Sherlock and Dr. Watson, like the characters and the way the story not necessarily is written, but the way the mysteries unfold. I absolutely love those. I did guess a little bit of what happened in this one because there are great parallels between this and the TV show of Sherlock, The Hounds of Baskervilles, so I did guess some things, but I still really, really enjoyed this one, so 4 out of 5 stars. And then that is everything. Hopefully this video wasn't too long because, like I said, I had a couple times where I had vlogs for these books. I need to learn how to cut my talking down. If you guys like this video, give it a thumbs up to let me know. Subscribe to this channel if you would like to see more videos. I do have videos up Mondays, Thursdays, and sometimes Saturdays. So I will see you then. Bye.